Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60, and a massive thank you to the 200 people that have already left comments on possible issues with this car. Now, going on from what I said in the video yesterday, now that video was filmed sort of within an hour or so of me realizing there's an issue with the car, and there's like a million things going through my mind, as I'm sure hopefully you guys can relate to. Something I forgot to mention, when I was actually driving the car out yesterday morning, I noticed that it was taking more effort to maintain normal road speed. And at the time I just thought, shit, I need to make sure the diff isn't binding or something like diff or brakes related. It was enough of an issue that I reset my fuel economy to monitor if it was using more fuel than it normally would be. Of course, at the time, because I've just put the diff in, I'm thinking it's feeling a little bit more sluggish because of the diff binding. But I bet it was down on power, and that was heading out to get my haircut yesterday. Aside from that, I've done a hell of a lot of reading. Everyone's comments, I've looked into anything that I hadn't really thought about before. The only bit of, I don't know, saving grace that's in my mind at the moment, a few of you guys did mention that spark plugs caused your vehicle to idle like this. Now, I would have thought if it was a spark plug issue, and I mean in regards to how it's firing, the way that it misses and the way that you get that uneven exhaust note would change as you went through the rev range, but who knows. I hope to God it's just a spark plug's fouled or something's dodgy with a spark plug. A few other guys suggested it could be things like spark plugs cracked, so it's not getting the correct spark, and I guess that could be very plausible, or even maybe a spark plug backing out or injectors leaking. Now, all of those things I really like the sound of, and I mean injectors leaking combustion out of the injector hole. If it was either a spark plug leaking compression or an injector, I would have thought you'd hear it at the engine bay. And in the engine bay, it sounds pretty normal. It's still got the metallic tick, which this engine's also always had. Anyway, there's enough chit chat. Let's get it started. And hey, maybe it miraculously fixed itself overnight. Wouldn't that be amazing? Nope, she's still cammed. Oh man, all right, let's get her up in the shed. And we'll start trying to diagnose it properly, I guess. Now, a mate of mine actually works at a BMW dealer here, and last week they had a broken valve spring on I think he said it was an N52. Or maybe it was an N50. Anyway, it was a similar engine, just not the boosted version. And he said the broken valve spring sounded just like this as it went through the rev range. There was no metallic knocking at the front of the engine, which is weird. You think it would, you think you'd have some rattle noise going on at the front. But yeah, basically it was just down compression on the cylinder. And everything I've sort of read, that's what this is like. A couple of guys suggested it could be a lifter issue. And again, that's also more what I'm thinking it is. If a lifter's not the correct size that it should be, it obviously won't be opening the valves properly, and then that sounded quite bad then as I opened the door, and then that cylinder won't be firing like it should. All right, I'm gonna shut it off. Okay, and the other thing that quite a few people actually suggested that I really don't have a lot of faith in was an ISTA smooth running test. And in the interest of me learning, I'm going to do that first. So let me get the ISTA set up and we'll do a smooth running test and see what the results are. Okay, so I'm going to try and do a operational smoothness test. State. What we might need to do is actually start the vehicle. So let me start the car up. She certainly sounds different with the engine cover off. So looking at that, cylinder 4, and yeah, cylinder 4 is the only one that's closer to its max value, interestingly. Okay, cylinder 4. Something to check, I guess. We'll see if that relates to anything when we get the plugs out. Well, I hope you can hear me all right. I'm not too sure what this particular value for cylinder 4 really relates to. I mean, it's just the only one that is very different to all the others. Now, something I have just done off camera, but I'm going to do it on camera so you guys can hear as well. I'll disconnect the coil packs, and you can hear it drop down. So cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, I've got to put it back in. Sorry, engine. Cylinder 4, now this is the one that's got the strange smoothness value. And you can see it makes about the same difference as the others. Cylinder 5, and lastly cylinder 6. So let me shut her off. And you can it's still camming away. So yeah, ISTA implies that there's something different about cylinder 4. Pulling the power from the coils makes the same difference on all the cylinders, which makes me think it's probably not an ignition issue. Next step is get the plugs out and see what they look like, I guess. Let's get on with it. Okay, so in the interest of not messing about too much, I'm just going to go straight to cylinder 4. That one had a different value. We'll see what the plug looks like. Coil all looks fine. Plug's not loose. Not loose at all. Oh, which is fine. Ay, ay, ay. The plug still seems to have all of its threads. And the spark plug, I know the GoPro is going to be crap for this. I might take a photo. I'll take a photo and I'll edit it in, but the plug looks okay. It's much harder than I thought it would be to get a photo. I guess what I'm going to do is put the compression tester on it and check compression. That's all we can do. Should have sealed. So I'll pull the power from all the other coils and I'll try and turn it over. Come on. Okay, yeah, we'll try and turn it over for a couple of rotations and we'll see what it does. It's 50 psi. That's compression. It should be more than 50. Let me check it again. I'll let it turn over for a bit longer. $60. All right, we'll try this again where you guys can actually see the dial, and we'll just see if compression is leaking out or anything. $60. There's the problem. Fuck. So yeah, this sucks. I guess thinking ahead, from this point on I need to try and work out if it's a valve or head gasket or cylinder, piston, ring, cylinder wall. Find out what it is that's causing that cylinder to be down on compression, just in case it is something that can be fixed while the engine is in place and not worry about completely swapping the engine just yet. I'm really leaning towards something in the valve train. Like I said, it's always ticked. With the stethoscope, which I have here, the ticking noise appeared to be coming from around this part of the engine. So my guess is something on the intake valve side of cylinder 4, because that would line up with this ticking noise I've had for so long. However, before I jump to conclusions and go even further into that, I'm going to just do a compression test on cylinder 1 and just make sure my compression tester's working properly. This is the one I used when I tested it last time, and this was pretty much, everything was between 190 and 200 PSI when I checked it a few months ago. And it's that tick that made me check it back then. Anyway, I'm just going to do cylinder 1 the same way I've done cylinder 4 and just make sure that this is working as it should. Okay, so that 55, 60 PSI on cylinder 4 is probably an issue. However, before I jump to conclusions that it's just cylinder 4, I'm going to do a compression test on all the cylinders and just see how the others have held up. I'm thinking it's an issue with a lifter or a valve or something, like a valve's not sealing, just based on a guess really. But that might not be the case. It could be actual pistons or cylinder walls or head gaskets. However, I really want to check the others and just make sure the others are okay. Obviously there's no point trying to repair, like if say it's a valve spring or a lifter that's causing the problem, there's no point trying to repair that if the other cylinders are knackered as well. So also, I probably didn't do that compression test the best way. I was just sort of quickly checking that compression. So I'm going to run the car out of fuel and we'll check compression on all cylinders. So I've pulled the power wire from the low pressure fuel pump. We'll let it run for a few seconds and it should stall itself out, and that way we won't have any fuel being pumped into the cylinders while we're doing the compression testing. I hope. So we've got a fuel pump fault on the dash, and she's out of fuel. And God, those buzzers get annoying. Right, I may as well unplug the ICOM connector, because that's not going to do anything for a little while. All right guys, I'm going to get all the spark plugs out and then we'll go through and do a compression test on all cylinders. So I just thought I'd show you quickly, these are the 4 plugs, cylinder 1 through to 6, and you can see, hopefully the GoPro is focusing, you can see cylinder 4 is the electrode, or the ceramic around the electrode is brown with the rest are white. So cylinder 4 is definitely going through a bit more stress than the other ones, or something's going on, the fuel's not burning as clean. It's going to be interesting working out what it is. All right, let's get this compression test done. Okay guys, it's in cylinder 1. Now when I tested cylinder 4 before, I basically just tried to turn the engine over 4 or 5 rotations of the engine. I'm going to let it crank over for a bit longer and just make sure we find the maximum compression it's going to get. Normally it's about 5 seconds worth of letting it crank. So let's check cylinder 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I don't know if you guys heard that, but it made a clunking noise as I let off. Anyway, right. So cylinder 1 is down as well. That's not great. Yeah, last time I checked this car, it had Cylinder 1 was just over 150 then, just for my own record. Yeah, last time I checked this car, it was all around 190 to 200. Bugger. Who would have thought a completely unknown engine might have problems if you wound it up to nearly 3 times the amount of power it had stock? Who would have? That was a lie. It's only about 2.5 times. Hopefully you guys can still see that. Let's check cylinder 2. Cylinder 2 is 155-ish. So it's down as well. All right, what I might do for the rest of it, I'll manually check them and I'll just show you guys at the end of each check. Cylinder 5, sorry, cylinder 3 is just over 5. That's just over 150. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So cylinder 4 again. So I went a little bit higher, but she's still well under 100. Now I basically just cranked it longer, where the first one you saw I only cranked it for a little bit, but yeah. She's down. Really, you want these to be anything under 170 PSI is not good. But so far, all of them are down a little bit. All right, I'll keep going. So cylinder 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do we get from cylinder 5? Cylinder 5 is just under 150. All right, lucky last, cylinder 6. Let's see what she does. Although my guess is going to be it'll be around 150. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just over 150. All right. So yeah, this kind of sucks. Just to clarify, in case the video doesn't make it clear, but all the cylinders have 150 PSI, apart from cylinder 4, which has tested at 100 PSI. So there's definitely something wrong with cylinder 4. And again, you can see its spark plug is a different color to the rest. So yeah, something's not right with cylinder 4, but all the cylinders are down a little bit on what they were, which kind of sucks. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking about what's caused this. And if you haven't been following along, I really need to stress that when I got this car, it was cheap. Like, it was $10,000 less than what some people were selling these for. And it was only a year ago. Like, it was a very, very cheap car. It did have a water pump leak, it had a radiator leak, and the other obvious thing I noticed when I picked it up, it had an oil filter housing gasket leak. The overflow bottle, when I cracked it, was full of oil, which I thought was quite concerning, considering he was actually continually filling it up with coolant as well. But the other thing was, when I actually checked inside the coolant overflow bottle, I could see it actually had chemi-weld in there. Now, I didn't hit the guy up about it, just because car's a car, it is what it is. But yeah, long story short, it had chemi-weld in. I'd made the assumption they put chemi-weld in it because of the oil filter housing gasket. Now, a lot of mechanics in Australia don't know these engines that well. So if he'd taken it to a random corner shop that hadn't worked on one before, they probably saw the oil in the coolant and gone, oh, head gasket's gone. And I think that's a common misconception that people make with these motors. But I mean, if you're into them, you know, the oil filter housing goes, and then that's what gets the oil into your coolant. So when I saw the chemi-weld, I assumed it would have just been because of the oil filter housing gasket. But yeah, I'm just looking at it now. I don't know if the GoPro is going to pick it up, but even there's still a couple of little gold specks on the cap, and there's oil on there still. I have flushed this coolant so many times. When I first got the car, the amount of oil in the cooling system was so bad that the heater core wouldn't actually work. It was full of gunked up oil and chemi-weld. And even 6 months after owning it, when I fitted the transmission cooler, the pipe that goes along the bottom of the engine, that was actually full of oil as well. I had a heart attack when I undid that bottom coolant hose that goes to the transmission heat exchanger, and a shitload of gunked up oil came out the bottom. So look, I've said 100 times, I don't have a lot of faith in this engine. The guy I bought it off said he'd never serviced it and he'd had it for about a year. And I got the impression that it hadn't been serviced for a long time. It was definitely in a state of disrepair, and this is what happens with cars. You don't know if the guy I bought it off was bouncing off the rev limiter, like raping the hell out of it with dirty oil in it, and that's what's lent on to doing this damage. It is truly an unknown with a secondhand engine. Hey, look, and the reality is we could build a brand new engine and it'd do the same thing anyway, so it's always luck of the draw with a motor. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do at this point in time. When it was just cylinder 4 that was down on compression, I was thinking it might be a valve or something in the head, like a valve spring or a lifter that I could fix and just keep going. But since all the cylinders are actually down on compression a little bit, I'm also thinking about just swapping the engine out of the E90. The E90 engine, I'm gonna have to do a compression test on that, make sure it's okay, which I haven't done yet. But assuming it is all right, the E90 should be good to go into this one. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a big job. And even just swapping the engines, although I got most of the parts, you're still gonna have to do all the gaskets. Oh man, yeah, rocker cover gasket, pan cover gasket, drive belts, all the common maintenance things. It's going to be an expensive swap, even though I've got everything there to do it properly. And I guess the reality is I'm thinking ahead now. If I'm doing that and doing all that work, should I test the 19T's turbos instead of the 17s? Let me know what you think. When I bought these 17T's, you couldn't get the 19T in right-hand drive. If you guys would like to see some 19Ts, make some comments below. I'm not going to lie, I might even try and see if we can get someone to sponsor them, since I think we've sold a hell of a lot of the 17Ts. Still no issues with the turbos, it's just my unknown engine which has proved its unknownness at this point in time. Now I'm going to put the plugs back in so I can still drive this car around while I work out what I'm going to do with it. And when I say drive it around, I mean if I need to move it somewhere, I can move it, like even out of the shed, it's much easier. But yeah, I'll give you guys an update. It's probably going to be mid next week. I'll give you an update on what I'm going to do when I've worked out a bit of a plan on what to do with this. I'm really thinking E90 engine in this, get the car running again, then if the channel keeps getting these wicked views, I might even look at building this motor up. I'd love to have a properly built engine with a big old single turbo sitting just here. In a year or two's time, that'd be goals, that would. Anyway, look, rambling on. I'm really butthurt about this, but this is the reality of playing with cars. Like this thing was making so much power. And even I watched the videos back, you cannot tell how fast it goes in the videos. It is a fucking weapon with these cheap China turbos. You just need a decent engine to support that 27 PSI. Yeah, and just to confirm, we've only been running it at 27 PSI and we're targeting, I think, 13 degrees of timing, although on the flex map, I haven't actually done a full power log past E60, so the highest timing we've demanded out of this was like 12.8 degrees. We weren't even pushing it, it's just a shitty engine. But hey, that's what you get. Anyway, sorry for rambling on. I'm going to close it off here. Thank you very much for watching. Don't lose faith in Team N54. Don't lose faith. We've got some updates on Team S62 coming the next day or two as well. Catch you on the next one. Peace.